Welcome back. In this video, I'm going to be building up the Z-axis drive assembly for R1. So let's hop into CAD, I'll give it a spin for you guys, and then we'll jump right into assembling it. This is the Z-axis assembly. If I pop over to the exploded view, you can kind of see what's going on. It all centers around this big metal base plate that everything is bolted onto. And then there's also a little idler assembly at the top. I've got the bag of parts all ready to go, and so let's just start by putting everything out on the table, and we'll jump right into it. So I've laid out all the parts here, and we're going to start with this aluminum plate right here that's been cut out on a water jet, and then I've added some additional features on the mill, such as this bearing bore and also some counter bores for some screws. So we're going to start by taking one of those bearings, and we need to press it into the bore. It's a pretty tight fit, so it needs to be aligned fairly well. The next part is this 3D printed block, and it's already got some heat set inserts installed into it. And we're also going to take another bearing and push it into this bore here. We can take some M3 by 16 button head cap screws, and we'll use those to fasten these two parts together. I'm going to leave these two pieces a little bit loose. So the next thing we're going to do is prepare the drive shaft. Take the 20-tooth idler pulley and slip it over the end of the shaft. And now we need to space it off the top of the shaft by 4 millimeters. And now I can tighten the set screws. And now we've correctly set the spacing for the pulley. We're going to need to add a spacer to the shaft. For this case, it's just an M5 washer. Now we just push. So now that the bearings are aligned, I can go back in and actually tighten these screws all the way. Next thing we're going to do, attach the NEMA 17 stepper motor. So we need to install a 16-tooth idler pulley on the stepper motor. And we want this to be about 3 millimeters off the top of the shaft. And tighten both set screws. We will slide the stepper motor in from the back. Use M3 by 14 button head cap screws to fix it to the plate. At this stage, we would be installing this assembly onto the actual printer frame. Essentially, one of the aluminum extrusion slots in right here, and then we fix it in with bolts here and here. And then there's another piece of extrusion that comes here, so it kind of is mounted into a corner like that. And there are some bolts that pass through these holes and get screwed into that piece of extrusion. And so we're going to be installing it on this just for this assembly. Put a 0.5 millimeter shim on this shaft, and then we can actually put that little 3 millimeter thick bearing on the end. We'll get these M5 by 45 millimeter spacers. To hold them in place, I'm going to get these long screws, and they just come in from the back, like so. I can take the bearing retention plate, which has this reamed 9 millimeter hole in the center, and that will slot over these bolts, and it will hold that last bearing in place. So now we can put this whole assembly on the extrusion, like so, and screw it down. We're ready to install the belt. We're going to take the large pulley. We're also going to take another M5 washer and use it as a spacer on the shaft. Then we can slip the pulley down onto that spacer and tighten the set screw. And one more here. Now to actually put the belt on, we can slide it over the small pulley and then around the larger pulley. And then here's where the tensioner works. If I push on the stepper, it tensions the entire assembly. And so with it under tension, I can go in and tighten these bolts that retain the motor. There we go. So that's the drive unit pretty much complete. And now we just have to assemble the little idler for the top. So it's a really simple assembly. We are going to slide through the idler pulley. 2 more of these shims, little metal block that has a reamed 5mm hole, and then some threads cut into the bottom of that hole. These idlers can't take very much bearing preload, so we don't want to over tighten this at all. Just enough so this can spin freely. So that wraps up an overview of the Z-axis drive unit for R1, and stay tuned for any remaining videos which will dive into some of the other sub-assemblies. Alright, see ya!